Victoria, good to see you.
Good to see you too, Jimmy. Happy to be here in Utah with you.
Yeah, kind of random that you ended up here in Utah today.
I know. Look at that.
You're one of those people, though. I mean, you've traveled literally all over the planet. How many countries have you been to now?
I am now at 38. I'm proud of it.
That's good.
I'm on a mission to go to every single one, just like you.
I think that I am going to end up going to those final ones like in my last years of my life. Cause like I want to go to all the countries where I don't actually have any risk.
Right.
But the world's such a crazy place now, but there really is so many fascinating places to go. Well, you had a cool way to do it though. I've had to do it on my own dollar. I mean, you got to do it for your work.
Yes.
Essentially. I'd love to kind of get into, you were born in Brazil, but ended up out in Europe. Maybe kind of just tell your story a little bit. I'm super fascinated.
So I was born in Brazil. And then when I was 5 years old, my parents separated. So my mom moved us to the US. So I grew up in Orlando and New Jersey. So I went to school in New Jersey, had that whole American experience while all at the same time going back to Brazil every year for summer vacation and kind of living the best of both worlds. And when my parents divorced, I wasn't sad at all. I was very excited because I thought, even at 5 years old, ooh, I get to travel to 2 different places and live in 2 different places.
Good perspective.
And it was really exciting because I had really such 2 drastic experiences that gave me a lot of awareness, let's say, not only about myself, but about the world. And my parents were both flight attendants. That's how they met. So they met traveling the world. So they were also a big part of my life that encouraged me to travel as much as I could.
And so did you purposely try to take the route to go into the modeling, or how did that all come about?
So actually, no. When I was little, my dad, he's a photographer. So he wanted my sisters and I have twin sisters. He wanted us all to be actresses and models. That was his dream for us.
There's 3 of you?
There's 3 of us. Okay. And we look completely identical. Same height, same everything. They're twins. And but my mom wanted the opposite route. She wanted us to go to school, study. That's why she brought us here to the US to have a better education than Brazil. And then I went to high school with my mission to one day be CEO of my own company. So I worked my ass off in high school, really went the extra mile so I can achieve that. However, when I arrived at university, my first year, when I got there, I realized that if I were to stay there 4 years and invest that time and that money, I wasn't going to be able to get what I needed to get out of that experience. I realized there was a big disconnection in terms of the education. It was a lot of memorization. I went to Penn State University, so It was a very, very huge school. And I went to a very small high school, so I had a very much more intimate educational experience, big relationships with my teachers.
You basically could see through the facade of what is college very quickly, just because you'd had a real good education from high school.
Exactly. Yeah. Because it was so small and intimate and very sports oriented, and again, close relationships with all my teachers, I had an incredible love for learning. I sat front row of every class. Not that I just really enjoyed learning. And when I arrived at Penn State, I had the opposite effect. I had 600 kids in my one class. I wasn't connecting with what I was doing. And again, it was about memorization as opposed to learning. And then again, on the social aspect, everybody there was just getting drunk, having empty sex. And I started to feel very out of place very fast.
So did your parents just raise you to think differently than that? Because I mean, for a lot of people growing up in Jersey and Florida, those seem like party high school type areas. How did you avoid that, I guess, or stay out of that?
Yeah, so I was never really a big drinker. I've never did drugs, but I think it was the relationship that I had with my parents. I have very good relationships with both parents. And because we have such a level of trust, my mom always encouraged me to follow my heart, do whatever I want to do, but with communication. So she really also, she never really restricted me from anything. And she taught me in such a way, she actually, when she was 30 years old, divorced my father, she was going out in New York. Mom, sorry that I'm going to say this on the podcast, but she was going out, taking ecstasy, dance clubs back in the 80s. Like, she was having the time of her life. And she always told me, Vic, you need to try ecstasy. It is so much fun. I think she was so lenient with it. And she shares so much about her incredible dancing experiences at the clubs that maybe she did it for me. I'd never felt like I had to do it or needed to do it.
Interesting.
So maybe there's also some of that. There was so much leniency and a relationship of friendship even, that I just lived it through her, and I didn't have to do it.
And your sisters, were they the same, or were they
same.
More? Really?
Same, absolutely same.
And so you were in college and just feeling like, this is just not my scene.
No, and there was so many nights I went out. I went to the frat parties. I did this. One time I'll never forget. I go to a big frat party. I get all dressed up. And then the night goes on and I wake up passed out in a puddle of beer. And I wake up and I'm like, what is this? You know, what am I doing here? This is just not making any sense. And this is not what I want to be doing. So it was a big moment that I realized that this is, if I stay here, this is what my 4-year college experience will be composed of.
Yeah. So how'd you figure out where to go next then?
So in that time that I was in college, my younger sister, she actually went to Asia for 1 year modeling. So she modeled in Thailand, Singapore, Hong Kong. She finishes that 1 year, and I finished that 1 year of Penn State. She said, stop what you're doing. You need to come with me. This is life-changing. And it was in that moment that I decided to drop out of Penn State. I told my mom and she was like, Vic, but are you sure you worked your whole high school career for this? I said, yes, I think I'm looking for something different, and traveling the world is going to give me that space and that freedom to really discover what I want to do. And I was just looking for something different. Mm-hmm. I was yearning for some type of excitement that I knew I was not going to I knew I was not going to get at the university that I was in.
Yeah. Somebody asked me the other day, they're like, would you do anything different in your life? And it's one of those questions where I don't like to answer yes, because I don't know how it would have changed everything else. And so I wouldn't do anything different. But if there's like a route that I would have gone differently, I would have maybe taken a year or two and just traveled internationally. I never did that in my early 20s. I mean, I went on a mission for my church for 2 years to Mexico, but that was hardly traveling. I never left the neighborhood I was in, essentially. Right. And so, decide you're going to do this. And I think it's one of those careers. I mean, you were an international model for how many years did you go end up doing it for?
12 years.
For 12 years. I think a lot of people have, a lot of interest in that, right? It's one of those things that people always want to talk about. Instagram models, it's one of the things that, obviously they blow up when they're, putting it out there. And nowadays, I think the word model is a little bit overused because everybody thinks they're a model, but like you were actually working and you were doing this as a full-time gig. Yeah. So maybe just get into the weeds of it a little bit. Like, what is that experience?
Wow. First, it was the best decision I ever did was to do it. And, at 18 years old, you mentioned, we really don't know who we are, what we want to do. The world is so big and there's so much life that at 18 years old, we don't know who we are to really make a decision and commit to something or to an industry that we want to take on for 4 years and invest all that time and money. So really traveling the world and kind of opening yourself up to new experiences will allow you to kind of, decide or connect with, this is exactly what I want to be doing. So this opened the door for that. And my first trip that I went to when I was modeling was actually in Bangkok. So at 20 years old, I packed my bags, went by myself to Thailand, arrived there. No one speaks English. Mind you, this is before Instagram. This is before Google Maps. This is before Google Translator. So it was an adventure. You really go to the other side of the world completely on your own.
Yeah, I think about the movie The Beach. Have you ever seen that?
Of course.
When he goes to Bangkok.
It was this.
Drinking blood.
It was this, yeah.
It's
and Khao San Road, that street that he's on, is exactly like this.
Wow. Okay.
Oh, yeah.
So how did you see the movies like Taken, you just hear horror stories of people being taken advantage of. How did you go making sure that you were going to be safe and not taken advantage? I mean, you're 20 years old.
Yeah, 20 years old. So there's still a lot of scams out there, of course, with trafficking and all this, but you have to really find a credible professional agency. And one that's established, that has a reputation, and what can help at that time. Again, this is before even Google reviews all of this, but models that have worked with them and can verify that they're legit. But there are incredible agencies out there that really support a model's career and opens the doors for so many incredible opportunities. And you just have to find the right one and do your due diligence to research.
So because your sister had been doing it, did you just kind of join the one that she was doing?
Exactly. So my sister had gone out there I went with the same agency she went. So everything was taken care of.
And so did you immediately start having success, or was it difficult to do? Like there's got to be some crazy stories from those.
So it's amazing, right? Because at 20 years old, or the younger models that come in at 18, 16, most of us don't have any money. And I didn't have any money. My parents have money, but I wanted to do everything on my own. And the good thing is that the agencies, they'll usually provide for your first time, your flights. They'll pay for your rent, and they'll give you pocket money. So at that time, I was getting $100 a week.
Okay.
To spend. Not bad. But again, this is taken out of your contract. So any jobs you book, you're going to pay that back.
Yes,
the
they're
flights,
just fronting the money.
They're just fronting the money. So it really gives you an opportunity to come there. And mind you, if you're there, usually every season is about 3 months that you work with a certain agency in a certain country. If you don't make any money, let's say you had no success and you didn't work at all, you don't have to pay anything back because they're gambling on you.
Sure.
So it's an incredible experience. Even if you go there and make no money, you just got 3 months of living in a different country for free.
And so you're going out there, and so you don't have, it's not like you're going out for a specific job. They just know that once they get you there, there's enough companies that are hiring models in that area. Is that essentially?
Correct. So the way I describe it, okay, when I first arrived in Thailand, it's almost like a college experience, okay? And it's like this. Usually they get a whole apartment building and they'll put the models in each room. So we're all together, almost like a dorm, if you want to think about it. So it's still, we're all together. And then every day, instead of going to a couple classes, you go to a couple castings. Oh. So let's say you go to 3 to 4 castings a day, and then whatever jobs you book, you'll do that job. But every other day you're still doing castings. And what's great about that is because all the models are together, whether living or doing castings together, we all meet each other. And since we're all there pretty much alone, we have really a nice family.
It's not competitive though, because some of you are probably getting jobs from that the other one's going for as well.
I mean, I'm sure there's going to be a bit of jealousy. And again, this is a world of a lot of rejection. You're going to get rejected 90%.
Really? That often?
Oh, yeah.
You're not getting...
Oh, yeah. Because think about how many castings you're doing a day. You could be doing 5 to 6 castings a day.
Oh, wow.
And maybe that whole month you get a no. That happened to me. It can happen.
So was there a point when you realized, okay, I'm going to be able to do this for a career and, do really well doing this?
Yes. First, because of the opportunity that it was. And I had many months where I booked many jobs. Even when I first arrived, I remember I did my first casting. I was shaking in front of the camera because, you think that modeling is just really easy. It's just to stand in front of the camera and smile. But no, it's every job you have to fit into a character. You have to be a certain persona. And what does that take? That takes confidence. That takes enough self-awareness to be able to, on demand, showcase a certain emotion. And that's incredible.
Can you still do that?
Oh yeah, now I can. From crying, surprise, to shock, to horror. But again, it takes time to develop those skills. And again, it really comes from that level of awareness that you have with yourself. How do I tap into those emotions? And most of it comes from personal experience.
Yeah, I've heard actors talk about that, where they have to cry on demand. They just think of something that actually is very painful in their life.
This is the most realistic and most... the best, most authentic way to do it. You try to really connect with a similar experience in your own life, and then you translate that emotionally.
So I try, when I public speak in front of big groups, I try to bring some emotion into it because people obviously like that. And so I know which stories, I can't even get through them without getting emotional. I mean, I was on a podcast today and the kid asked me about a certain thing with networking. I told a story from, 15 years ago, and it still got me emotional. It was kind of funny. I'm like, I still can't get through this damn story without getting a little bit choked up.
And this is what people want. This is what people connect with is emotion. And this is, again, what makes us human. Yeah. So this is something that we should work on every day to improve, because this is how we really get the most out of life.
Did I ever tell you I joined a model agency for a little bit?
Yes, Jimmy.
It wasn't exactly what you're thinking, though. So we were at the mall, and they had this runway set up. And me and my buddy, we were just messing around. They were doing a show, and whoever won got a $500 scholarship for the acting and modeling agency. It was basically a way for them to just get people to pay them to, bring them in or whatever. But me and my buddy did it. And we were just trying to be hilarious. We were just being funny. And then they were came up to us after, and they're like, hey, you guys are really funny. We want to give you the scholarship, both of you. We're like, all right, cool. So we go, and I remember both of us, I was 21, and I was 3 months off my Mormon mission. So keep in mind, I'm pretty raw in the world. And it was so funny. We go there, and we're both kind of dude, I don't know if this is for us. Let's just go check it out once. But I was like, would I want to be an actor? And we get there, and it's literally 40 pretty attractive girls walking around in everything from fully dressed to their underwear. And we both look at each other all right, we're going to give this a couple of weeks and see how it plays out. But anyway, we ended up doing, it was funny because the one thing I remember, I got my tonsils out. And I lost 15 pounds. Wow. And the lady that was in charge of it was it was in 10 days, and she was like, you can't eat, and you literally don't eat, and you don't want to drink anything either. And she's like, what have you been doing? You look fantastic. What are you using? She was so interested for the other models. And I'm like, well, I got my tonsils out. But we ended up going on a couple of the auditions or whatever for some shows. And then we ended up I ended up doing some other things, but it was a fascinating experience to watch. And I didn't realize how extreme everything was. Like the girls that were really taking it serious, I mean, it was a 12-hour a day process for everything they were doing to try to make it.
One thing, one skill that modeling has definitely taught me is patience, because most of the time it's a waiting game. You have to wait on set. Sometimes, mostly in my career, I did a lot of commercials. This is what I mostly did. That's where the money is. And of course it's more challenging. So I really resonated more with this, but sometimes I can just appear on a commercial for 10 seconds and I'm there shooting for 12-hour days.
Yeah. I was an extra a couple of times and you're just like 10, 12 hours for like, 12 minutes of actual.
I mean, the production, it takes a village to put on that kind of a production. I just shot now a series in New York. And again, it's just to shoot one episode. It's many, many days, 80 people on set. Everyone has a different tedious job. It's
pretty intense. I hired a guy a couple of years ago. Have you heard of Prince EA?
No.
So he's had 4 billion views on YouTube. He's one of the bigger influencers.
Oh, yes.
He's amazing. Black guy that talks about health a lot and just really great videos.
He makes like those, the songs also, right? The inspirational songs. Yeah, he's great.
And so he and I became buddies and I was like, hey man, let's do it. Let's collab on something. It was right when COVID was hitting. And so we did this thing called Take Off Your Mask is the name of the video. And
I love the title.
Yes. And so it was all about taking off your mask of like being fake, but also we played on the COVID thing and take that mask off too. And he knew where I stood on all that pretty early. So it came out in June of 2020, but he wrote it and we went, so he was, he gave me the price of how much it cost to make. And this is one YouTube video. And I'm thinking, I'm used to, you just make a video and you put it out and hope people like it, and every now and then you go viral for some odd reason. And he gave me the budget and I was like, I didn't understand. I'm like, and he explained it to me and I went out to watch the production, and just to make our YouTube video, it was a 2-day shoot with probably 20 extras on set.
Wow.
And they had, it was a full team of people, 30 people, and I couldn't believe what I was seeing. And it's like, they did one shot with me, 20 times. I'm over here like, guys, I don't even care if it's not good. Like, it's my damn video. I'm done.
Yeah.
But it was like, it was just a couple hours. But yeah, I was there all day, shot this part that was maybe an hour or two, and it was exhausting. But I'd never seen that level of just how much was going into even just a YouTube video. It's pretty intense.
It is, but it's beautiful after, to watch it afterwards.
It went viral. We had millions of views.
Yeah, exactly. And knowing all the work you put in, it's beautiful to create.
It was.
It's beautiful to create.
Yeah. So, you're doing that and everything. So what did you learn early on? You're 20 years old, you're going and you're doing this. Obviously, ended up going very well. You did it for a dozen years, but what was the things early on that maybe you learned about life or yourself by doing that?
Some things that I'm truly grateful to today. So being in that world where also in terms of relationships and friendships, usually when you live in a set place, you have a lot of time to develop relationships, where when you're traveling and modeling, like I said, you only get 3 months in each country on contract. So the friendships you meet, the relationships you have, it goes really quickly. So you learn to not only adapt, but also you learn to be very, very open, more than you usually would be, because you have a really short time to connect. You have a very short time to make friends. So that easy way for me to adapt now, and the way I can be so open today, really allows me to be more intense in my relationships, more deep in my friendships, because I don't really waste time. I go all in on the first day.
I feel like, you do that really well. Even when we met in Barcelona last year, it was like very quickly, it felt like we connected very deeply. I was oddly deep for that quick.
And modeling gave me this. It gave me this skill or this experience that I've been able to master and utilize very well in my everyday, because again, relationships is so important in life. It's the seed of life. We need that to live. So to be able to have healthy relationships in life is very important.
So did you feel like you missed out on any part of your youth, or were you taking enough breaks to make sure you were still felt like, somebody in their 20s living a normal life, or were you just gone all the time?
Well, that's the thing, Jimmy. I didn't want a normal life.
Okay, fair.
At all. I would travel for 1 year, different countries, and I would always try to come back in the summer, back to New York to see my mom, to see my friends. And, I would come back after 1 year. I felt like I had lived 10 years. I would come back with so much different experience, different knowledge, different exciting topics that like, wow, it's like my whole mind just blew up in terms of new perspectives. And I would come back and I would just find, you know, maybe my friends from that town, just nothing really changed, nothing really moved forward in such a fast pace. And this is why I lost a lot of friends in that process, because we just weren't resonating anymore. And I was blown away by how much I would learn in a short amount of time. And I would stay, even my mom, she was like, Vic, don't come back. There's no point for you to come home. And she's like, I will only allow you to come home if you already have a ticket flying out to leave. Because she's like, you're young, you need to go travel the world, you need to go live, because life is out there, it's not here.
Yeah, I think that's one of the saddest things in life is when you grow apart from people you love, but you also just, it's not that you're like, oh, I'm going to move on from them. It's like, we just don't connect anymore.
Right.
And when you go start traveling the world, I think travel is the number one thing, because it just exposes you to so many different ideas and thoughts and, you know, experiences where you are going to change very rapidly as a human being.
Absolutely.
And so you got to be prepared for, if you try to go back to a very easy or small or simple life, whatever you want to call it, it's going to be tough.
And, you know, in the amount of culture you're exposed to, the different types of people that you communicate, you have to work with, learn with, have friendships with. You know, I was having friends from Australia, from Indonesia, countries that I have never even heard of when I was in school, never even thought that I would be connected to in some way. So this opens up your mind a lot. And also, again, the skill to have relationships with different kinds of people, different cultures, different languages. And I think this just makes you a better human, because you become more understanding, and then you're able to sympathize, to connect, and to learn from each other.
Yeah, it changes your views. I mean, even for me, I see like what's going on right now in Israel and Gaza and all that stuff. And it's like, I've been to Gaza, like I've been to Palestine, and it's like, you just all of a sudden you're like, no, those are real people. Like I've been there. Those people were just trying to live, you know, and
exactly.
It changes your views of what is, maybe what the media portrays and some of those things. And when you've been there, you have a different feeling towards the entire thing.
Absolutely.
So did you have a worst day ever, or maybe a moment when you're like, why am I still doing this?
For sure. You know, even though it can be exciting and it's definitely an adventure, there are some hard parts of it. You know, you're away from your family most of the time. You know, I only saw my mom once a year. So I was really on my own. And
you were able to do that okay? Because I think, you know, a lot of people really struggle at that.
Yeah, yes. But again, it's like, even though I knew that was hard, I would try to call my mom as much as I could when I would miss her, but I knew what I was out there for. I was on a mission, and there was no way that I was going to go back home. I had way too much to learn. So I just kept moving forward. And of course, there was times that it's hard. There's many times you're alone, or when you arrive in a new country, it could be overwhelming. Like I said, most people that at that time didn't speak the language, or you have no friends and you have to start over every time. Imagining having to start over a life every 3 months. It's exciting, but of course there are hard moments.
You weren't going out, and like most people, they're just connecting around the bar scene and drinking and all that. And you actually went sober at what, 21, I think, is what you said, right?
21. Yeah.
How much time you got now without drinking?
Now I am 12 years without drinking alcohol. I haven't been drunk in 12 years.
How did you make that decision? Was it when you woke up in the pile of?
No, actually, it took me going to Thailand. You know, kind of really opening up my mind and I had a huge epiphany while I was in Thailand, and it came about actually through food. So let's say through veganism, where I questioned, okay, what am I putting in my body in terms of nutrition and health? And when I found out that a lot of what I ate was because of tradition, or I was being conditioned to eat those things without the true knowledge of the power of health. And again, what my parents were telling me to eat, what their parents were telling them to eat, what the American society was telling me to eat. And then once I started doing my own research and this quest for knowledge for not only adventures and traveling the world, but also my health, I quickly learned and completely changed what I ate. But again, in that moment, I had to change my identity entirely, right? Because think about it. Our habit of eating is something that we do 3 times a day, if not more. So what we eat is ingrained in who we are. And not only that, but then we also eat socially. We celebrate by eating. We mourn by eating. We do a lot through eating. So once I changed my habits of eating to a more healthy lifestyle, I took a step back and I was like, I actually locked myself in my apartment for 3 weeks and went down many, many rabbit holes of information. And one of them was alcohol, you know, because I realized that when I was going out clubbing with all the models, there was moments where I lost control, or I let my emotions get the best of me. I wasn't really even present. How many nights I didn't even remember. And I was like, wait a second, this does not resonate with the person I want to become and the relationships that I want to be having. So when I kind of had that awakening in my apartment, that's also when I let go of alcohol completely.
So when you were going out and connecting and trying to, make friends with the other models, and I'm sure there's a lot of pressure with all the agency people and everybody else that's in these countries. I asked this question more so for other people that are in your shoes that, maybe they have been able to do that, maybe they haven't, but how did you do it to still make sure that you felt like you weren't losing out on opportunities or networking or socializing, but still being true to what you now knew is a better way to live for your health?
Giving up alcohol, not even giving up alcohol, making the decision to not drink alcohol gave me more power. And it was a gift I gave to myself. So I never went about it like, I'm missing out, or I have to try to not drink. It was such an empowerment move where I felt so empowered, because that means that every time I would connect to someone, I was able to give myself fully to them. And, we have such a big responsibility in how we connect with others, interaction with others, those moments that we have, whether big relationships or small moments, like an Uber driver, for example. Those are small moments and big moments we have in our life to create big impact. And we have a responsibility to be as present as possible, to give the best of ourselves. And if we're drunk, usually when we're drunk, we're not giving the best of ourselves. So this is how I saw it. And when I saw myself sober, connecting with others, I actually was happier than I ever been. I was having more fun, dancing my ass off. Until today, I still go out because I love to go out and meet people, but I do it in a sober way, because for me, it's the only way. Alcohol is it's a poison in many ways. And think about,
literally is a poison. If you drink too much of it, you're going to die. It's not even that much.
Exactly. Think about it. It's I'm going to be drinking something. I'm going to be putting something into my body that hurts me, and in the process hurts other people. No way. Because I will do better for myself. I can do better for myself. So I set that standard for myself, and through my actions, it was a decision I made. It wasn't like, I'm going to be 1 year sober, or I'm going to be 2 years sober. No, it was a decision I made to myself for the rest of my life. Some people call me extreme. Oh, Vic, you need to have some balance. But again, it's like, if this makes me feel good and it helps me give more to people, I don't need balance. I'm going to commit to that.
Yeah, I think for me, it's, I've been really focusing a lot lately on being more grounded and being more present. And those are two things that I think our nervous systems, I think most of the problems we get in is when we have an unregulated nervous system in some way, and then we try to mask it, whether that's with some kind of addiction or, alcohol is a very, very common one that people use. And so I try to get present with myself. And when the feelings come up of like, I want some junk food, or, I want to do this, or whatever, something that would be, even going to social media. Recently I took all of the social media apps off my phone. And just because you can still do it on your computer, but it's fascinating. When you do it on your computer, it's actually not very fun.
No.
It's really weird. It's a whole different experience, but I can still check my messages and post and do what I need to do. And it's just fascinating. I'm like, that was absolutely a crutch, or it was something I was using to not be present. And so like what you talked about of that, giving my best to whoever I'm with, whatever the thing is in your life that's distracting you from being the most present, for a lot of people, that is alcohol, because you can't be your true self. You're not being your full self, at least, when you're doing that. So I think for that reason alone, I can see how that probably was very empowering for you, because anytime you were connecting, it was a true connection.
Right. Absolutely. And that inspires people, then they also have the courage to see, wait a second, you can still have fun without alcohol. You still have friends without alcohol. You can still go to a club without alcohol. It's inspiring when you kind of have people breaking the norm. Mm-hmm. There was even one night I was in a club in New York, because I love to dance. And I love music. So I go there. I'm mostly in these scenes. And I remember I'm dancing on the table, having the best night of my life. And there's a girl passed out because she drank too much on the floor. Yeah. And one of the guys there came up to me. He's like, Victoria, are you sure you're okay? He was concerned with me, even though I was dancing and smiling.
Never mind the girl in her own
right,
puke.
because I was not drinking, because I rejected a drink. But the girl passed out. She's seen as normal because that's what you do. And this was such an interesting perspective for me. I was watching like, wow, how conditioned we are to see someone having fun but sober. Something must be wrong with her.
Yeah, when I had my first drink at 34, which is kind of funny. It's kind of, we like switched at the same time there. But I'm so grateful that I learned to process my emotions without alcohol, to socialize without alcohol. And, I remember one time we did this big houseboat trip in Lake Powell. It's this most beautiful lake in Arizona. And we had probably 80 people between these two boats. We'd connected two boats and we built a water platform to dance on in between them. I mean, this was a party, we all got like these neon things on. There's no alcohol allowed on these trips back then. And I remember we're playing games in the middle of the front room. And this random guy, because we're on this big beach it's called Navajo Canyon. And this guy comes from another boat. He just sees the party and sees all these cute girls. And so he comes, he gets on the boat. I'll never forget. And Mike Fleming, a buddy of mine, was the guy in charge of that trip. And he comes in and he's got 2 things of vodka and one in each hand. And he goes, I'm here for the party. And there's probably 15 of us in this front room playing games, right? And there's another 50 out dancing. And it's probably 11 at night. And I remember... And Mike's like, oh, awesome, man. Well, welcome. You're welcome to stay, but this is an alcohol-free boat. And the guy laughs his ass off. He starts laughing. And Mike's like, no, I'm serious, man. And the dude like stops and he looks at all of us, and every one of us has a water or like a soda pop. And a few people had like Red Bull. And he just was like boggled. And he's like, this sucks. And he like walks out. But it was just the funniest thing. It's like we really did create. And even like all of us that were on those early trips before any of us drank, and then the ones later where they really became a shit show. I mean, we had to run a girl to the hospital once because she was getting so drunk, and everyone agrees that they used to be more fun before everybody was just drinking. Nice. I do think that, that atmosphere, when you get enough people on board with it, especially, it really does create a better scenario for true connection.
Absolutely. And like you said, most people drink alcohol to mask their emotions or even to gain confidence. And again, they don't develop that time with themselves, and they use alcohol to get there. It's like a Band-Aid. And then again, to feel good about yourself, you need to drink. To talk to a girl, you need to drink. And again, you're missing out on you. You're missing out on all you are.
Yeah, I had a buddy come speak to my men's group one time, and he's a very prominent public speaker. And he said something. He said that he and his fiance had given up alcohol, and he said, why do I want to lessen the memory of all of my greatest celebrations? He's like, why do we use alcohol to celebrate everything? He goes, I want to remember that to the fullest. I want to feel that to the fullest. And I remember thinking like, damn, that's beautiful. Pretty well said.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So you've been on this health journey. I mean, obviously as a model, did you ever get in the anorexia game? Did that ever play in or anything?
Not at all. I mean, don't get me wrong. There was many incidents in my career where I was told to lose weight. There was even one shoot I was at. They did my hair and makeup. They took some pictures. They put me to the side, and a woman comes over to me. She goes, Victoria, we're going to send you home. You're too fat. So we were called another model. And I was just like, took a nice deep breath, and I was like, okay. So you do get some of that. In
that moment, did you think you were then overweight?
No.
You knew you were healthy?
I was still healthy. I also just understood the market I was in. This was in China.
Right.
So it was just a very different market, you also have to understand the standards, and most markets have completely different standards from each other. And this is why many models do different contracts, different places. They need to find out where they work the best, pertaining to their profile. I didn't take it to heart. Again, I just had a very good head on my shoulders in terms of my self-confidence, and this helped. But of course, there were many models that, whether they became anorexic or tended to drugs to keep that weight off. The good thing is that today, it's not so much that pressure of being so skinny.
What did you do to keep your self-confidence? Because you're in an industry and, people are, I'm sure, commenting all the time on your physical appearance. That was the nature of what you did. And so what stuff would you do? Like, what advice do you have to younger girls that, can look up to somebody like you that was, modeled all over the world, and to help with that self-confidence?
I think you need to have experience that build character, And also, I think connection with family and friendships, people that have your back and that can point out or criticize when you're making the wrong move or making the wrong decisions. You kind of need to have a moral compass. This really helps. And then again, taking the time to self-reflect, process, really question, okay, what kind of woman do I want to be? Especially because when you're going into the modeling world, again, like I said, it is a lot of rejection. You are being based solely off your looks. So you need to understand this is just one part of me. This is just a job. I am much more than my looks. And the good thing is that now with modeling, it's not so much how you look. Now they're interested in personality. It's really much about that. What else you bring to the table? You know, they're not just looking for a pretty face anymore. That's the exciting part about the evolution of the modeling industry. They're really looking, okay, what activities are you interested in? What kind of volunteering services are you doing? They really try to find the full package in a woman or a man. And this is exciting. I think through social media, it kind of expanded this opportunity. You know, it's not just a stick figure in front of a camera. It has really evolved the image of a model.
More need and purpose for models now too, because there's so many brands that need quote unquote a model or an influencer. You can almost use it, you know, the word interchangeably a little bit in a lot of cases. And a lot of it is like a lot of brands are outdoor recreation or, you know, like a service organization or whatever it might be.
Yeah. And I think, you know, taking care of yourself and that can come in many ways, whether it's through health, what you're eating, exercising, anything that can give you that state of mind where you're at peace with yourself, because that is where you are in your power and you truly can stand in what you are and who you are. And that will give you all the confidence to take on any industry, any job in the world. So
a lot of women nowadays, like because of social media, young girls, especially younger girls, like in their, you know, high school age and college age, I would say, you hear all the stats and all the data coming in of how many more of them are depressed or suffering because I think of this. They see somebody like you on Instagram and start comparing themselves, right, to these models. And, you know, they're only taking one aspect of a person's life. I mean, I've done this as a guy. I remember when I first got into traveling and I was comparing myself to, you know, a account called the Bucket List Family. It's like literally they'd go to a new country every week. And as a buddy of mine, I'm like, shit, he's doing more than I am, you know? And then this other area of life, you're comparing yourself to a guy that has spent his whole life to be in weight training, is in the gym 4 hours a day. And over here, meanwhile, I'm running a business and doing all these things so it's hard not to get caught up in that. But I think a lot of young women, especially, they spend way too much time or just their attention into social media and trying to get validated through that. I just want to get your thoughts on that.
This is interesting because again, when I was 20 years old and starting off my modeling, we didn't have Instagram, you know, so.
Is that about when Instagram was like coming out?
Yeah, exactly. It just started coming out.
What, 33 now?
Yeah, I'm 33 now.
Okay.
And it just started coming out. But again, no one was really using to post about their lavish lifestyles or, you know, selfies. This wasn't really a thing. It was still like, you know, you posting a picture of a random thing. Yeah. So now the younger girls in high school are having that in their face all the time. And, you know, of course, now everyone's comparing themselves. And like you said, social media is not really real life. People are just posting little parts. And there's a lot that we don't see. So we have to really be mindful. And, you know, those thoughts can come in. I think it's now very normalized because social media is in our face all the time. You know, now even in modeling, when you go to see an agency, for example, they'll ask you on the list, okay, what's your height? What's your weight? What's your name? How many followers do you have? You know, so it's now what else are you bringing to the table in terms of your social influence? And this is how they decide whether they will contract you or not.
Yeah, when I had Chris Williamson on my podcast, when I went on his show, Modern Wisdom, we talked about this a little bit and it said the problem that we have in today's society is we're mistaking what gets attention for what's actually valuable. And so a lot of young women as well, they're trying to do whatever they can to get attention. You see like the Hawk Tuah girl where that thing just blew up like crazy, right? And I think what happened is you saw a woman that was just very feminine and free in her energy, and that's what made her so attractive. But then women start thinking it's because she talked about, you know, how to give a good blowjob or whatever. Right. And so they just mistake it. And then you see Call Her Daddy is the most popular podcast on the planet, some of these things. And so I think that just the messaging, it's women are trying to get attention more than they are trying to create value in their lives. And I think it's a dangerous game.
You said that extremely well. We're validating attention as opposed to value. And I think we all have a responsibility, whether a man and a woman, if we're producing content, we need to understand the intention of that content. Why are we producing this? What value am I bringing to people? Because I have a responsibility of who I influence. And whether you have a big circle or a small circle, you will be influencing, right? Because people will look up to you. You have friendships and this will inspire circles and circles. So we have a responsibility to truly be mindful and aware of what we are posting. And like you said, now, you know, even with the word model, like with OnlyFans girls, you know, instead of calling them what they are, I won't say it here, but, you know, the people are calling them OnlyFan models. And again, then all these girls
almost like tries to legitimize what they're
exactly, but it's online prostitution. Yeah. That's what it is. And I see so many young women now going into this thinking that this is modeling, and it's not modeling at all, because there's no respect there. And, or, hey, I'm finally making money. Yes, but at what is the cost?
Right.
You are the price. And I think as women, we have to really call each other out on that, because we can do so much better as a collective. We must do better, because we need to also help men not look at us just in this way.
So how do you use your own social media to show the deeper parts of you? Because you're into business and you're into health, and you, as I've gotten to know you more, like, you are a very deep individual. And that's why one of the reasons I want to have you on the podcast. But it's hard to share a lot of that stuff through social media, right? Like, how do you keep people's attention when they only want to see your ass in a bikini or something, right?
Yeah. And I had to go navigate through my own process of this, I like to be sexy and feel sexy. And a lot of my pictures in modeling were sexy. So I did post this, and then, it came to a point where I questioned back, okay, what am I posting on my Instagram? And I have to also be responsible for what I'm posting, and kind of try to, again, mindfully post with the right intention. And I think as a woman, you're going to evolve in different phases of who you are and what you want to show. And this is something that I'm still trying to do every day with, okay, what am I showing to my people? What am I showing through Instagram? What can I improve? And I think this is a good question that we should all be asking ourselves. What should I change in how I post? How mindful can I be?
My best advice for people, because I'm guilty. Like, I used to post a different way, but I'd post, my success or all the fun stuff I was doing, and I was trying to get validated. Same thing, right? I had to get very real with myself, and I think it's evolved a lot for me. And what's funny is when you're doing it, everyone can see it, but you. So you think you're sneaky, and like everybody can see what you're doing. But I was talking to a friend recently, and he was frustrated that his wife was just posting a lot of very sexual thirst traps on her Instagram. And, it was like, how do we have this conversation? And so when I was talking to her, I said, look, there's nothing wrong with posting you being attractive, but the energy with which you're posting it.
Exactly.
Like, if you're doing it to get validated, if you're doing it to make some guy jealous, if you're doing it to get attention from a bunch of thirsty dudes online. And it's like, so I think ultimately the best advice I have for people is, look, only and look, you can post it and you're going to get the attention, but if that's at your detriment or if that's going to be a benefit to you based on what you're posting and why you're posting it. And so I just think it's the energy with which you put stuff out there.
Absolutely. The intention matters, because you will attract that. Mm-hmm. It will come full circle, like you said. So again, what experiences do you want to have?
So how much has modeling changed from when you were into today? And do you still recommend, if there's a girl at Penn State right now that's 20 years old and like, this is bullshit, like, what do you recommend? Do you think it's still a good opportunity for young women to get into?
I do, because I think traveling, right? And what I love about modeling is the traveling is you're doing different jobs every day. So you're being challenged differently. You don't have the kind of, let's say, the everyday expected 9 to 5 sitting in an office job at 18, 19, 20 years old. And I think this is the prime time to really get out there and explore who you are. And modeling, if you're interested in this particular industry, it does bring a nice window of opportunity for different things, different people, different perspectives, different worlds. And when you go there, you really get to really explore and expand who you are as a woman, as a man, as a human, most importantly.
So is it much different today than it was when you started out?
Yes, it is different. The positive difference is that it's more inclusive. Again, modeling has evolved, not just one type of profile. So, by
the way, I feel like I want to chime in here on this. The body positivity movement, right?
Oh.
So I'm going to just touch on this, and I'd love your opinion. I probably know where you stand, but recently I think it was Sports Illustrated, one of them put out a picture it's one of the athletes from the Olympics that has a different looking body, but it was very athletic, and she was in her bikini, and they posted it, and everybody was like, yes, this is the body positivity we want. It's like, love your body. It was not a super feminine, skinny type look or, curvy look of a typical bikini picture. And people loved it. Like, yes, this is body positivity. What isn't body positivity is this lie of like, Lizzo or whatever her name is, that was like 400 pounds. And it's like, no, this is beautiful. Love your body even to the death because you're so unhealthy. So I'd love your take on that.
I love this topic because seeing it from both sides now, from the modeling world and now from outside, the body positivity movement, I think there cannot be body positivity when a body is unhealthy. And I do not think we should be promoting unhealthiness as a beauty, because truly loving your body means taking care of your body. That means eating right, eating well, and exercising. This is beauty because not because it's sexy or it looks good, but because it's healthy. And that naturally we're attracted to, because this is what is good for us in the long term, in the short term. This is what we want to strive for. So, I remember I did a big campaign for Target actually a couple years back in New York, and it was 4 models that they chose. I was one of them, and the other 3 were plus size models and very large plus size models, because what's happening with right now in the States, most people are overweight. So, instead of having 2 and 2 or one plus size model, they had 3, and I was the minimum. Because right now they're needing to tailor to the American public so that they feel comfortable, and of course they can resonate. They need to see themselves in the products that are being sold. Because if you look at the American public, the majority are extremely unhealthy.
I think 87% are overweight and 40% are obese.
So I saw through modeling how the industry was changing in terms of the ads, like what kind of women they were using to promote so that people can connect and resonate to them to essentially buy their products. And again, they distorted it into body positivity, all inclusivity, look at me. But again, it's promoting unhealthiness because they still want you to buy the product.
Well, I'm glad that you're speaking out on that. I think more people need to say that. And I think the tide is turning a little bit because, it's just a lie. It's a lie that we're selling to people to, not take care of themselves and to be unhealthy. And it all goes to part of,
to just keep taking from them, whether it's money, again, and we need to really enforce that body positivity is a healthy body, period.
Well, we'll end on this. You've been, again, studying health a lot. You are very immersed in that world. What are a couple of your main things about health that you're very passionate about or that you most would love to talk about?
Health is your freedom. I always say this, and what do I mean by that is that the more you take care of yourself, the more empowered you are with who you are. You understand. And when you commit to that lifestyle, that choice to live your life in its purest form, you're going to be fulfilled. You're going to live a happy life because you're connected to your purpose. You understand why I'm here. And again, it gives you the opportunity to be present in who you are and give love to others and really find joy in everyday life. And this is essentially freedom. Yes, there's financial freedom. There's many aspects of freedom, but having this sense of self, I always say this will lead to all kinds of freedom.
Yeah, I've always said every single part of your life is better when you're healthy doing it.
Absolutely. Everything. Absolutely. Your relationships will flourish. The relationship with yourself will flourish. Your family will flourish. Everything will expand. And again, you're just going to feel this sense of fulfillment. Most people right now are feeling so anxious, so depressed, so stressed. It's because it's just a lack of connection with self. It's that lack of commitment to live a healthy life, because right now we're just overstimulated, not only with bad foods, social media, we're constantly being taken away from ourselves. We need to every day make steps towards coming back into ourselves so we can expand that.
What does that look like?
What does being healthy look like?
No, coming back into ourselves. Like, what are those steps?
There's a couple of steps you can do. And again, all of us have different journeys and different paths. For me, it was being sober. This was a huge step because in doing that, I made that commitment to every day work through my emotions, work through heartbreak, not jump to forget, not go numb my emotions. We need to feel, we need to process, we need to understand. Every heartbreak, every rejection you're going to get is a blessing in disguise because you're just building character and that confidence, that maturity that comes with age. And we need to be alive and present for those moments too, because it's our stories. And we get to share that with each other like I'm sharing with you now.
Beautiful. For people that want to follow you and learn more about what you are doing and involved with, where do we send them?
You guys can come to my Instagram. I also have my website there with V, the company I started. So yeah, absolutely.
What is your Instagram?
Victoria Summer Leo.
Perfect. Thank you again. So good to see you here in Utah.
Thank you, Jimmy.